Hi, boys and girls. It's Miss Kelley, and today we are going to start reading part 2 of the Speckled Band. Now, before we read part 2, I want to go and review a little bit. So we have Sherlock Holmes, who and Dr. Watson. They're both fictional characters made up by the author Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote Sherlock Holmes stories, and so Sherlock is a detective, and he uses logic and keen observations to come up with an answer. Basically, he inferences. So that's what we're going to start doing. Now, we need to remember all the clues. So we have Helen Stoner, who is coming to see Sherlock Holmes because her sister died 2 years before. Now, I don't know why it really took her so long to get over there to Sherlock Holmes, but she doesn't have any money right now, but we know she'll be getting money once she gets married. Okay, because once each girl gets married, they have to split the money with Dr. Roylott. Dr. Roylott is Helen and Julia's stepfather. Both of their parents died. The father died first, and then the mother died in a railway accident. And so that left Dr. Roylott to take care of her girls. Now, he didn't treat them very nice, obviously. But 2 years ago, Julia Stoner was getting married. She had met this gentleman at her aunt's house. And so, and then all of a sudden, Julia started hearing noises in the middle of the night, a low whistle and a metal clang sound. And at the night she died, she had asked Helen if Helen had heard this. And Helen's like, no, I hadn't. But when Helen was actually woken up by Julia's scream, and when she came out, she saw her sister stumbling out of her room. She knew she had locked her doors. They kept it locked because of the gypsies that roamed outside, because of the baboon and cheetah that roamed on the property, and of course Dr. Roylott, because he wasn't nice to them. So they actually locked their doors on the inside. So when Julia came out, she was stumbling, and she fell to the floor and was convulsing, which means wiggling around, moving around. And right before she died, she said a very important quote and did something that was very important. We need to remember exactly what she did. So she said to Helen, "Oh my God, Helen, it was the band, the Speckled Band." And she stabbed with her finger into the air in the direction of the doctor's room. So that means she pointed to Dr. Roylott's room. Now, we're going to start reading part 2 of the Speckled Band. So they're right now at the part where she's just finished telling Sherlock that part, and Sherlock is asking her questions. Here we go. "Was your sister dressed?" "No, she was in her nightdress. In her hand was the charred stump of a match, showing that she had struck a light and looked about her. That is important. And what conclusion did the coroner come to?" And remember, boys and girls, a coroner is a public official who investigates deaths. "He investigated the case with great care, for Dr. Roylott's conduct had long been notorious, but he was unable to find any cause of death. My evidence showed that the door had been fastened on the inside, and the windows were blocked by old-fashioned shutters with iron bars, which were secured every night. The walls were shown to be quite solid all around, and the flooring was also thoroughly examined with the same result. It is certain, therefore, that my sister was alone when she met her end. Besides, there were no marks of any violence upon her." Okay, boys and girls, that's super important. So she's saying what the coroner found. So all the rooms and the windows and everything were locked, so the gypsies couldn't have gotten in. Dr. Roylott couldn't have gotten in through the doors or the windows. Of course, there was no cheetah or baboon marks on her that could have killed her. And she wasn't shot, there was no marks, so they don't know what happened to her. Here we go. How about poison? The doctors examined her for it, but without success. What do you think that this unfortunate lady died of then? It is my belief that she died of pure fear and nervous shock, though what it was that frightened her I cannot imagine. Okay, boys and girls, so she always thought when her sister died that she basically had a heart attack because she was so scared. Okay, that's where the expression comes from, scared to death. Like she died because she was so scared. But were the gypsies on the estate? Yes, there are nearly always some there. Ah, and what did you gather from this reference to a band, a speckled band? Sometimes I have thought that it was merely the wild talk of delirium. That means she was crazy. Sometimes that it may have referred to the gypsies. I do not know whether the spotted handkerchiefs that many of them wear on their heads might have suggested the strange adjective that she used. Holmes shook his head like a man who was far from being satisfied. These are very deep waters, said he. Pray go on with your story. Remember, that means pray means please. 2 years ago have passed since then, and my life has been lonelier than ever. A month ago, however, a dear friend asked my hand in marriage. My stepfather offered no opposition, and we are to be married in the spring. Okay, boys and girls, very important. So now we know for a fact that's why she can pay Sherlock once she gets married, because she is getting married here to a very dear friend. And she's once again saying that Dr. Roylott didn't have any objection to the marriage, just like he didn't have any objection to Julia's marriage. Here we go. 2 days ago, some repairs were started in the west wing of the building, so that I had to move into the room in which my sister died, and to sleep in the very bed in which she slept. Imagine then my terror when last night, as I lay awake, I suddenly heard in the silence of the night the low whistle that heralded her own death. I sprang up and lit the lamp, but nothing was to be seen in the room. I was too shaken to go to bed again, however, so I dressed, and as soon as it was daylight, I got in a dog cart at the Crown Inn and drove to Leatherhead, from whence I have come this morning to ask your advice. You have done so wisely, said my friend, but have you told me all? Yes, all. There was a long silence, during which Holmes leaned his chin upon his hands. Now, boys and girls, now we know why she came back. So for 2 years, she actually thought her sister's death was because she was scared to death, and it caused her to die. However, now we're finding some very important information, clues to this. Okay, so the clue is that all of a sudden the house is falling down, and he's actually doing repairs in the wing that they live in. So basically in Helen's room. So now he's made her move from her room to Julia's room while the repairs are being done. Now, as soon as she did have to sleep in that room, which of course she didn't want to in the first place because of, she's sad that her sister's gone, and that was her sister's room. But the room, she's now hearing the same sound, that low whistle that her sister Julia had been hearing right before she died. This is very deep business, he said at last. There are 1,000 details that I should desire to know before I decide upon our course of action. Yet we have not a moment to lose. If we were to come to Stoke Moran today, remember that's Dr. Roylott's house. They used to name like the large houses like that. They used to name them. Would it be possible for us to see these rooms without knowledge of your stepfather? As it happens, he came to town today on some important business. It is probable that he will be away all day, and that there will be nothing to disturb you. Excellent. You are not adverse to this trip, Watson? Oh, by no means. Then we shall both come. What are you going to do, Miss Stoner? I have 1 or 2 things I wish to do now that I am in town. but I shall return by the 12 o'clock train so as to be there in time for your coming. And you may expect us in the early afternoon. I have myself some small business matters to attend to. Will you not breakfast?" And see, they kind of talk funny, so he's asking if she wants breakfast or not. "No, I must go. My heart is lightened since I have confided my trouble to you. I look forward to seeing you again this afternoon." She dropped her black veil over her face and glided from the room. "And what do you think of all of it, Watson?" asked Holmes, leaning back in his chair. "It seems to me a most sinister business." "Dark enough and sinister enough. Yet, if the lady is correct in saying that the flooring and the walls are sound, and that the door and window and chimney are impassable, then her sister must have been alone when she met her mysterious end." "What then of these whistles in the night and the peculiar words of the dying woman?" "I cannot think. When you combine the ideas of whistles at night, the presence of a band of gypsies who are on intimate terms with this old doctor, the fact that we have reason to believe that the doctor has an interest in preventing his daughter's marriage." Now, boys and girls, why would he want to prevent their marriage? What does he get if they don't get married? Ah, that's right, boys and girls. He gets to keep the money. Remember the money that's still left over that he used to raise them as they were growing up? He would get to keep the money. So now that's called a motive. So his motive is to keep the money for himself. And in order to do that, he either has to prevent them from getting married, which he doesn't want to do that because then they'll know what he's trying to do, or he has to kill them in order to keep the money. The dying reference to a band, and finally the fact that Miss Helen Stoner heard a metallic clang, which might have been caused by one of those metal bars that secured the shutters falling back into place. I think that the mystery may be cleared along those lines. But what then? Did the gypsies do it? I cannot imagine. I see many objections to any such a theory. And so do I. It is precisely for that reason that we are going to Stoke Moran this day. But what in the name of the devil? Our door had suddenly flung open and a huge man entered. So tall was he that his hat actually brushed the top of the doorway, and his breath seemed to span it across from side to side. That means he was as tall as the doorway and as wide as the doorway. A large wrinkled face marked with every evil passion turned from one to the other of us, while his deep eyes and thin nose gave him the look of a fierce old bird of prey. "Which of you is Holmes?" he asked. "That's my name, sir, but you have the advantage of me," said my companion quietly. "I am Dr. Grimsby Roylott of Stoke Moran." "Indeed, doctor," said Holmes blandly. "Pray take a seat." "I will do nothing of the kind. My stepdaughter has been here. I have traced her. What has she been saying to you?" "It is a little cold for the time of year," said Holmes. "What has she been saying to you?" screamed the old man ferociously. "But I have heard the crocuses promise well," continued my companion. "Ha! You put me off, do you?" said our new visitor, taking a step forward and shaking his hunting crop. "I know you, you scoundrel. You are Holmes the meddler." Now, boys and girls, a meddler is someone that gets in between someone's business that they, don't really belong in. But Holmes really isn't the meddler. Of course, Dr. Roylott just doesn't like him snooping into it because he knows that there just might be something. My friend smiled. "Holmes, the busybody." Holmes chuckled. "Your conversation is most entertaining," said he. "When you go out, close the door, for there's a draught." "I will go when I have had my say. Don't you dare to meddle with my affairs. I know that Miss Stoner has been here. I traced her. I am a dangerous man to fall foul of. See here." He stepped swiftly forward, seized the poker, and bent it into a curve with his huge brown hands. Now, boys and girls, a poker stick in this case, he went over to the fireplace, and a poker stick is that metal that you poke the wood with to make the fire keep make it a little bit stronger. And so it's a big, strong metal poker. And what he did was he bent the poker with his bare hands. So the point of that being is to show Holmes how strong he is. See that you keep out of my grip, he snarled, and hurling the twisted poker into the fireplace, he strode out of the room. He seems very amiable, said Holmes, laughing. I'm not so bulky, but if he had remained, I might have shown him that my grip was not much more feeble than his own. As he spoke, he picked up the steel poker and with a sudden effort straightened it out again. So basically, Holmes is just as strong as him. Of course, the man doesn't know that because he left. This gives zest to our investigation. Now, why would he say this gives zest to our investigation? Because think about that. Well, I think it's because now it makes even Dr. Roylott a little bit more suspicious to committing these crimes. And now, Watson, we shall order breakfast, and afterwards I shall walk down to Doctor's Commons, where I hope to get some information that may help us in this matter. It was nearly 1 o'clock when Sherlock Holmes returned. He held in his hand a sheet of blue paper, scrawled with notes and figures. I have seen the will of the deceased wife, said he. The total income, which at the time of the wife's death was almost £1,100. It is now not more than 750. Each daughter can claim an income of 250 in case of marriage. Now, boys and girls, I know that doesn't sound like a lot of money, but remember, this was written a really long time ago, so back then it was a lot of money, plus it's from England, and so it's a different amountage. And then over here on the side, it says 1,100 and the little pound sign. It says this pound sign is a symbol for English money called pounds. So it's just the sign for that. If both girls had married, Dr. Roylott would have a mere pittance. Even one marriage would cripple him to a serious extent. My morning's work has proved that he has the very strongest motives for standing in the way of his stepdaughter's marriage. So there's our motive, the money. Dr. Roylott has a motive because of the money. He wants to keep it all himself. And now, Watson, this is too serious for dawdling. So if you are ready, we shall call a cab and drive to Waterloo. Please slip your revolver into your pocket. And boys and girls, a revolver is a gun. At Waterloo, we were fortunate in catching a train for Leatherhead, where we hired a trap at the station inn. And a trap is a two-wheeled carriage. And drove 4 or 5 miles through lovely Surrey lanes. My companion sat in front, his arms folded, his hat pulled down over his eyes, and his chin sunk upon his breast, which means down to his chest. Suddenly, however, he tapped me on the shoulder and pointed. "Look there," said he. A heavily timbered park stretched up a gentle slope, thickening into a grove at the highest point. From amidst the branches jutted out the gray gables and high roof of a mansion. So they see the house. "Stoke Moran," said he. "Yes, sir, the house of Dr. Grimsby Roylott," remarked the driver. "There is some building going on there," said Holmes. "That is what we are going." So he wanted to make sure the trap driver knew why he was going in case that same trap driver was stopped by Dr. Roylott. And then he could say that he was helping with the renovations. "There's the village," said the driver, pointing to a cluster of roofs some distance to the left. "But if you want to get to the house, you'll find it shorter to take the footpath over the hills. There it is, where the lady is walking." "And the lady, I fancy, is Miss Stoner," observed Holmes, shading his eyes. We got off, paid our fare, and trap rattled back on its way to Leatherhead. "Good afternoon, Miss Stoner," said Holmes. "You see we have been as good as our word." Our client hurried forward to meet us with a face that spoke to her. "I have been waiting eagerly for you," she cried, shaking hands with us warmly. "All has turned out splendidly. Dr. Roylott has gone to town, and it is unlikely that he will be back before this evening." "We have had the great pleasure of making Doctor's acquaintance," said Holmes, and in a few words he sketched out what had occurred. Miss Stoner turned white as she listened. "Heavens!" she cried. "He followed me?" "So it appears." "He is so cunning that I never know when I am safe from him. What will he say when he returns?" "He must watch himself, for he may find out that there is someone more cunning than himself on his track. Lock yourself from him tonight. If he is violent, we shall take you away to your aunt's. Now, we must make the best use of our time, so kindly take us at once to the rooms that we are to examine." The building was of gray stone, with a high central portion of 2 curving wings. In one wing, the windows were broken and blocked with wooden boards, while the roof was partly caved in. The central portion was in a little bit better repair. The right-hand block was more modern, and the blinds in the windows with the blue smoke curling up from the chimneys showed that this was where the family resided. Okay, boys and girls, so basically, remember, this house is 200 years old, and he hasn't wanted to spend a lot of money on fixing it up. Plus, he can't really do any work because he was put in jail, so he can't be a doctor anymore. So it's just basically saying in the one wing, the windows were broken and blocked with wooden boards. So that's the wing they don't sleep in. But the right-hand side of the block was the modern side. That's where the rooms were. It was Dr. Roylott's, and then Julia's, and then Helen's. But now remember, Helen has had, per Dr. Roylott, has been moved to Julia's room for remodel. But it doesn't even appear that there needs to be remodel there. It needs to be on the other side of the wing. Holmes walked slowly and down the lawn, examining the outsides of the windows. "This, I take it, belongs to the room in which you used to sleep. The center one to your sisters, and the one next to the main building to Dr. Roylott's chamber." Now, boys and girls, a chamber is like the bedroom. "Exactly so, but I am now sleeping in the middle one. Pending the alterations, as I understand. By the way, there does not seem to be any very pressing need for repairs at the end wall." "There were none. I believe it was an excuse to move me from my room." Ah, boys and girls, there's another clue. So she's saying there aren't even any repairs being done to my room. It was just an excuse. Ah, now on the other side runs the corridor, which remember is a hallway, from which these 3 rooms open. There are windows in it, of course. Yes, but very small ones, too narrow for anyone to pass through. As you both lock your doors at night, your rooms were unapproachable from that side. Now, would you have the kindness to go into your room and bar your shutters?" Miss Stoner did so, and Holmes tried in every way to force the shutter open, but without success. Said he, scratching his chin. "My theory certainly presents some difficulties. No one could pass these shutters if they were bolted." "Well, we shall see if the inside throws any light upon the matter." A small side door led into the corridor, which is the hallway, from which the 3 bedrooms opened. We passed at once, the one in which Miss Stoner was now sleeping, and in which her sister had met her fate. And fate here means death. Okay, boys and girls, we'll be reading part 3 next. And then after you've read part 3 with me, then you can complete the Google form for the questions part 2 and part 3. I hope you're enjoying the story. I sure do miss y'all. See you soon. Bye.